Hi, I'm Adam Meyer of Mill City Lutheran in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and in this video we've got ourselves an early 60s Barney Kessel. It's a really great sounding guitar. The owner of this really loves it. I'm going to kind of revive it, but the theme of this video is not all vintage instruments are really within budget to do a proper restoration. We're going to go through and just get it playing as best it can. This is not going to get a full proper refret, but I'm going to show you what's going on with this neck and kind of not necessarily shortcuts, but alternate routes to go about restoring this and getting it playing as good as it possibly can. Right off the bat, you can see that this has been refretted before, and by the looks of it, at first glance, it seems fine, but we've got some really serious cuts into that fingerboard. You can see along the fret there, some are really gouged in there with a file. That's a big no-no. If you can see here, we got that bead is almost completely gone at the end there. Deep file marks in the fingerboard. Not going to be able to correct the fingerboard, but yeah, somebody just went way too hard at that fret. This one. The other issue is this has been refinished, so there's a big amount of value that's been taken away. That does not mean it is any less of a great sounding or playing guitar. Finish is just purely cosmetic and protective. These electronics have all been replaced as well. Once again, that does not mean it doesn't sound great. It's just the original parts are not there. So what we're going to be doing is doing a refret, getting the best we can out of it. I'll also be putting an actual tune-o-matic on the bridge, placing the saddle here with a ABR 2, the Tone Pros version, and just for better intonation. It's a part that can just easily, you slack the strings, put the original part back on. There's no detriment to anything. And also this pickguard is getting pressed down. There needs to be a little buffer, a filler or something underneath the pickguard here to keep from bending this. So that, hopefully you can get this pickguard flattened out and mounted correctly. And as you can see here, I took the pickguard off. We've got some red here. This guitar was originally a cherry sunburst. We do not have the original electronics. There's still plenty of red underneath the pickup here. Not sure why whomever took the color off didn't just follow through and get rid of all the red, because they took the time to put some clear on, so whatever, but it's yellowed, so it happened quite a while ago. So what I'm going to do with this, like I was saying before, is we're just going to put on tall frets. The owner of this already plays a lot of guitars that have really tall frets, so it's going to be comfortable to him. And you know what I'm working around. We've got a real lumpy fingerboard. These are very limited edition inlays. Can't level it to get rid of those. Can't level it enough to get rid of these gouges in the fingerboard. So we're just going to compensate everything with a little extra fret height. Now, if you were to go 100% on reviving this guitar, which someday, somewhere down the road, hopefully somebody does. This is a lot of really good bones to this, a really good foundation. It's a solid spruce top. There's no damage to the wood anywhere. This guitar is totally worth a full restoration, but that's going to cost several $1,000s. The refinishing alone is going to be a lot of money. To redo the fingerboard, the proper 100% total revival. This is what I've done on other vintage instruments, previous job and whatnot, but almost nobody ever wants to pay for it because it's a big amount of labor. What you do, you pull your frets, you warm up the inlays, get them out, save them, because you don't want to have to replace them. These also look like they may be plastic. I mean, you could replace them, but to get things to look the same, who knows if you're going to be able to replicate that. You want to put the originals back in. You then remove the fingerboard You're going to pull the binding off the fingerboard. Find a very thin veneer of rosewood and glue it to the bottom of this existing fingerboard to make it thicker. You can then level the original fingerboard, slot it, put the inlays back in, glue it on with binding, do some touch up. You could even put some binding nibs back in, because that's the process. You trim the frets on the side, glue the binding on, then file the binding in between the frets. But that's at current prices, you're easily exceeding $2,000 to do that. When you're out shopping for a vintage instrument, you come across a deal on something like this where you can just afford it. It's usually needing a big job like this. So like this situation, the owner of this absolutely would prefer to do that 100% restoration, but it's just not in the budget. It's not the kind of thing where, you know, he's not a collector who collects these and resells them and whatever and brings them all the way back to life because he has the budget for it. This guitar, the intent is that it's going to be getting played, it's going to be getting gigged and recorded, and you can still do that without having to do that 100% restoration. It's totally worth it, but doing these alternate methods are perfectly fine as well. Rough illustration of the situation we have going on here. Ideal, we're looking at the neck in profile here. Ideally, we would have a nice level fingerboard. We can refret it with whatever size fret we want. Nice and easy fret dress. Sometimes the fingerboard tongue slopes down. Not all the time, just every now and then. If you have a little bit, that kind of helps. You know, it's where it meets the body. You're not really playing up there. Many times it's level with the rest of the neck. That's perfectly fine. Now with this guitar, it's from the 60s. Wood does not stay perfectly straight forever. We've got a lot of lumpiness in that fingerboard. As you can see here, I drew a very uneven line. We've got an area in the middle of the neck that is kind of a high spot. It's low up around before it meets the body and down by the nut. And also the fingerboard tongue in this situation is sloping up quite a bit. Once again, it's an old guitar. The strings over time have kind of bent the whole thing towards itself, and the result is this fingerboard tongue coming up quite a bit. So that is the reason why we're making the decisions we're making. To do this correctly, we would remove the fingerboard, remove the binding, add a very thin veneer underneath the old fingerboard so we're still using that original wood, gluing together, this, that, everything, getting it level. But that is an absolutely massive job. We're going to work around that with using taller frets than what was normal. It's a workhorse guitar, not a big deal. It'll work when it's done. Let's get a close look here with the notch straight edge to see what we've got going on with the fingerboard. So this is from Playable Relief. When it was all strung up, checking the frets. You see, we've got pretty good back bow through this area of the neck here. But then here, we are gapped. Then up at the end, we're touching. It's actually, the very, very end of the fingerboard does curve down a little bit. But that's the issue we have. We got a lot of roller coaster to this. Right through here, gapped, touching. I'm going to I'm having trouble getting this nut out. most of the time I'll use some super glue to glue a nut in, like on my new builds or a modern guitar that I've replaced a nut on. I'm able to get it out using super glue. But this one, it is in there really tight. I have no idea what's holding it in so well, but I'm at the point where I don't want to hammer out anymore because I've got a Gibson from the 60s. I don't want to break this peg head. So I'm going to have to cut it out. I'm going to use the Dremel, get a slot established in there, go down, you know, as far as I'm comfortable, and then I'm just going to either try and use like a pliers or something to kind of crush it, or I'll have to use a small chisel to just chip it out and break it into pieces. Almost forgot, these are fret guards. Like if I have a maple fingerboard Strat and I want to polish the frets as part of a setup and I don't want to tape everything up, I'm not doing an actual fret dress or anything. These are just steel fret guards. I tape them down. I didn't have anything else to protect the fingerboard and the peg head. I definitely do not want to slip and hit anything with this Dremel. So I've got the metal there to protect the guitar. Alright, see that? You had a slot through the middle, almost all the way to the bottom. I don't want to actually go to the bottom, actually end up hitting the wood. I've just got it really close. Now, hopefully this will just simply collapse on itself. There we go. Got it. And paper shims under there and somebody cutting corners. Alright, so I'm just pointing this out because this is kind of a pet peeve to me. I think it's cutting corners. Anybody else who does this for a living, if you watch my videos, if you're not making a new nut when you do a refret and stuff, I'm telling other people that you're cutting corners. We've got shim added to the bottom, but we also have shim added to the back. So that's two ways that somebody took shortcuts to get this nut to work. Now they have a nut blank that was too narrow to fit in there, so they added wood to the back. But when the nut wore out, to get around slotting a new nut, they put shims underneath to bring it up. You want a nice solid nut in there. It's a sign of quality craftsmanship. If you know, you're shopping around for a refret or whatever, and somebody's or if you just need a nut replaced and they're doing this, take a moment and stop and think about what other corners they're cutting if they're cutting corners here. This is like a very fundamental part of lutherie work. Frets are removed. Let me look here closely. There's a little bit of super glue built up underneath where the fret bead would have been. So I'm just going to skim across this very lightly with like maybe some 220, get up 320, whatever. Somewhere in that area with sandpaper, just a little block. And just get that cleaned off. And I'll take a look with the straight edge at this fingerboard. Most likely we're just going to fret it as is. Check out these inlays. Some of them, like this one, that almost looks like that might be getting a little bit thin over there. So we can't be doing anything with this. With the frets off, get a better look here. Right along where this fret was, you can see that gouge. It goes all the way into the binding as well. So if we were actually leveling this, trying to get everything totally level, you really have to take this wood down to get a nice flat surface. As you can see that inlays and side dots prohibit me from doing that. Off. I've got all the glue cleaned off where the fret slots are. So let's get a look at what this fingerboard truly is like. This is with the truss rod all the way loose. Definitely have plenty of gap here. Gonna move over here to the fingerboard extension, and it is touching at the very end. Down here by the nut, it is touching as well. Now I'm going to tighten this all the way, just kind of getting a exaggerated idea of what's going on here. We've got back bow right here around the 5th. Got plenty of gap here, 9 to like 15. And then we're touching again at the fingerboard extension. Now I'm going to bring this back and take the truss rod to about the midway point. See, there's loose. It's right there. So we got, it's actually pretty decent. We're still resting here around 5. And we do have, you know, kind of some really low spots there. But otherwise, it's not crazy. Come over here to the treble side. And it's decent. Not horrible. Bass side. Now we do have a big problem. That is down here around 5 again. It's pretty bad. It's also where we've got one of those really deep scars in there. So especially since this is a lumpy fingerboard, I'm going to be doing this fret dress on my neck tension jig, string tension simulator, or whatever you want to call it. Need to get the nut made so that I can actually string this up and have it in tune to adjust everything. And just because I was showing you before the removal of this nut, how it had shims, this is with the nut slot cleaned out, just not removing any wood, removing the previous shim and any glue that might be causing it to rock around in there. But fits in nice. It's not tight, but also look, it's not loose. It does not wiggle around. You got to get that fit just right. Fit is neither tight nor loose. It should not fall out of the guitar. See that? It doesn't slide out. But as you can see, I can just put it right into place and it's ready to go. So quite predictable what the frets were going to be like. As I said, concentrating up here as much as possible. The frets that get least played, we'll sacrifice them. And actually, when you're putting the straight edge on it, the place that's off the most is actually right in here. These frets are quite low. Any high and low areas really aren't off as much as this one area. It reads kind of the same with the notch straight edge or was checking before. This definitely is a low area right in front of the neck heel. So just following through various lengths of leveling beams to be used. You know, I'll work this up here just to get one little section done to try and get it in line with the rest. And this is definitely not a job to be using a fret rocker on. You got to use a full length straight edge. Because, you know, if you're just checking a little spot here, you're not really being able to compare to what's happening up here. So you really need to, it's a combination of spotting little areas with the various leveling beams, different lengths, gradually get longer and longer, and checking with that long straight edge to make sure that we've got that one nice, long, consistent level here. So just going to keep finishing this off. Guys, still go up in grits a little bit so I can polish them out. And next will be fret crowning. Alright, I brought the bridge outside. I'm going to relic it just a little bit because the other gold hardware on this guitar isn't very worn out. So I'm just doing a very light use an eraser along the corners to kind of rub the gold away, then just a little bit of etching solution to kind of make it look the gold look a little worn and old. Final detail, get this pickguard corrected. It's the original. As you can see, it is quite rounded. Somebody had taken what was the I don't know if looking at it, it looked like there's some sort of washer or whatever, a circular piece. Sometimes there's felt or whatever, but that was missing, and the screw, they tightened it down. Pickup ring was right here, and it for years been bending that down. So I'm going to warm this up and then clamp it flat, and hopefully we get a nice result, or at least get some of this taken out. The method I'm using for this is I'm just going to use hair dryer. There are people that say use heat gun. I really do not recommend that for do-it-yourselfers. A heat gun can go bad really fast. The plastics have a burn point where once you hit that temperature, it'll start on fire. I've seen people trying to remove acoustic pick guards using a heat gun instead of a hair dryer, and it actually starts on fire on the guitar. So you don't want to go too hot, and especially if you have any tortoise shell or ivoroid binding, things like that, those are flammable, the celluloid materials. So this is good for regular ABS. Get it nice and hot. This is, I can hold my hand to it, but it's still pretty hot. It's like as hot as the hair dryer gets. And just get up close, and it'll eventually kind of relax and flatten out. I'm using some aluminum foil and a baking sheet just to kind of help reflect that heat underneath. And then once I have this consistently flat, I am going to lay a cutting board on it with some weights, because then it'll be pressed flat, nice and flat, and it'll cool off, and it should stay as it is. There you go. Not perfectly flat, but pretty darn close. And I also went ahead, somebody had glued this bracket to the pick guard. I needed to take it off to do this. Just local hardware store, a little nut and lock washer. I have no idea why people do things like that. It's so easy to repair. Just go to your hardware store and get the nut and washer. So anyways, time to put this back on. '63 Barney Kessel. Obviously an altered guitar, more than what I documented in this video. It does not have the original burst finish to it, it's a cherry burst. But this is a great playing and great sounding guitar, regardless of what's been altered on it, whether it's the finish, the electronics, the lumpy fingerboard. You can still revive a guitar like this in the aspects of bringing it back to 100% playability and 100% quality of sound. So this isn't something to hang on the wall and have it be an investment. This is totally a player instrument. It could be turned into that wall hanger, that real elite collectible guitar, but there's a lot of work to do to this. This is an example of a guitar that's kind of a working man's guitar. It's been passed, handed off to different players throughout the years. There have been alterations done to it, but it still plays and sounds great. You can revive it if you got the money to do it, but vast majority of my clients, they just want to, have one, have a real one, even if it's been altered, just so that they can play it, they can hear it, and there's just something special about that. It's a great player. It's definitely a candidate for somebody down the road to do that full 100% restore. The binding on the body has not been altered, so then this is just simply a refinish back to that burst. A lot of time, money involved in that to do it right and have it look really authentic. You may be thinking, well, if you refinish a guitar, it loses a bunch of value. It's already altered. So returning it to that burst color would definitely improve that. That would, I'm pretty sure whatever money you spent to do that, you would get more of that out in the completed job's value when it's done. The fingerboard and binding, those are some very high skill jobs to do. Can be done. I don't know if this guitar would really qualify or if it ever really should be refretted again. That's why we went with really tall frets on this. Not simply just because it's a lumpy fingerboard, it's just that if any work's done on this again, it should be that whole peel the fingerboard, put a shim under, rebinding, refret, everything like that. It's just getting so beat up now. It plays great, but it looks really bad. Nothing I can do about that other than that simple refret or massive job. So if you have any comments about this project or any of the other in my library, you can always leave a comment, or you can contact me directly. My information is in the About section of my channel, and we'll see you next time.